Hey everybody, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Mike Gibb. I run accountsrecovery.net, and I want to welcome you to today's webinar where we're talking about scaling with self-service AI bots, specifically for SMS and chat. You can unlock the potential of AI-powered self-service with SMS and chatbots. Today, we're going to help you learn how to scale your customer interactions, streamline operations, and reduce costs by integrating automated solutions. In this webinar, which is being sponsored by Skit.ai, we have a panel of experts here to share real-world insights on maximizing efficiency and enhancing the consumer experience with AI-driven bots. As I mentioned, this webinar is being sponsored by Skit.ai. Skit.ai is the accounts and receivables industry's leading conversational voice AI company, enabling collection agencies to streamline and accelerate revenue recovery. Skit.ai's compliant, configurable, and easy-to-deploy solution enables businesses to automate nearly 1 million weekly consumer conversations. Skit.ai has been awarded several award recognitions, including Disruptive Technology of the Year, a Stevie Bronze winner, and Startup of the Year in Artificial Intelligence. The company is headquartered in New York City, and you can learn more by visiting them online at skit.ai. I'll drop a link in the chat that you can use to click on to visit their website. Let me introduce you to our panelists. John Erickson currently serves as CEO of Credit Service International, a nationally licensed leader in consumer and commercial debt collection, litigation, and extended business office services. With more than 20 years in the ARM industry, John also oversees Credit Services International's M&A team and has completed more than 15 agency transactions. As a respected thought leader who is deeply committed to ethical and compliant collections practices for the ARM industry, John is a valuable resource to peers seeking innovative solutions to the industry's challenges, as well as to agency owners who are seeking to plan an exit strategy. Excuse me. Vaibhav Gupta is the director of go-to-market and product delivery for Skit.ai. He leads the tech solutions and delivery of voice and multi-channel conversational AI solutions for North American enterprises to revolutionize interactions in the debt collections and customer contact center space. Prior to this, he worked for Schlumberger, an oil and gas service company, in multiple geographies, driving tech and operational delivery for leading upstream operators. Diane Harrell currently serves as Manager of Operational Strategies with Resident Interface and has more than 18 years of experience in the ARM industry. In her current role, Diane is responsible for the growth and management of the company's digital technology and communication strategies. As CIO of Revenue Group, Chris Taylor oversees people, processes, and technologies, driving a technology strategy to foster innovation and growth for clients. With 18 years of experience at National Enterprise Systems as Director of Operations and Technology, Controller, and CIO, Chris has expertise in IT and financial services, particularly in debt collections. He's managed various collection portfolios and integrated technology into operations, including compliance, analytics, and reporting. Chris holds a bachelor's in information science from the University of Pittsburgh, and an MBA in executive management from Ohio University. Recognized in the Ontario Systems, now called FinVi Hall of Fame, and as Manager of the Year in 2007-2008, Chris continues to contribute to the ARM industry through speaking engagements on technology topics. Everybody who's watching us live is absolutely invited to ask questions and submit comments during the course of our webinar. You can use the chat or the Q&A to submit your questions and comments. If you wish to participate anonymously, click on the anonymous button in the Q&A, and anything you send to us is sent anonymously. Okay, so let's jump into our conversation. The first thing is let's do a little bit of a discussion on chatbots, and I'm curious why. I want to know why chatbots are something that is it something that every agency should have today? Diane, you signed on last, so I'm going to make you go first. Sorry. And I know it's my fault that you signed on last because you didn't have the credentials, but I'm still going to pick on you anyways.
No worries. I think absolutely chatbots are available 24/7. They can handle, multiple consumers at once. And a lot of consumers these days don't want to speak to an agent, so they can, self-serve without doing that.
Excellent. Thanks. Anybody else have any other reasons why everybody should be using chatbots today?
Yeah, I think it's good that we start with the good and the goods of them, right? And then maybe we can talk about some of the areas that it lacks thereof. I think Diane hit on the biggest one, which is the 24/7 availability. If somebody wants to talk to somebody at 2 a.m. when they stumble home from the bar, a chatbot is there ready to take that call and have that conversation, so to speak. But there's a lot of good that come with them, and mostly around money, right? The cost to stand up a chatbot, the cost that would come with staffing that chatbot with an actual person instead of a bot. Obviously, there's a significant cost savings that come with it. I think Diane was hitting on something with the debtor engagement. Some people don't want to talk about their bad debt. I think that's a good one. We have seen constant case studies, or especially in younger generations, where they would prefer to interact with or self-serve themselves without getting a person on the phone. I think there's a very good opportunity for reduced human error in negotiations, whether that's around compliance and security. Maybe a bot isn't going to say something you don't want it to say, as opposed to live chat, where there's always been that problem where I think we've seen them where they're cookie cutter responses. Like, you'll know you have a live person on the other end, so you're expecting a more customized message and approach coming back. But then you end up with these canned responses back to you, and you're like, are you a human now or not? Because you were acting like a human. And I think that's one thing that's very different when you know you're interacting with a chat bot, and your questions and the way you interact with it is very differently than if you think it's a human on the other end. I think there's different ways that you would type to them. Maybe you would more likely use slang, I would say, that in a conversation with a human, where if you know you're interacting with a computer, you maybe won't do that. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to reduce the errors coming back and actually personalize it a little bit more than a human typing or picking from a list of possible responses, where the bot can flow more with the consumer and asking or answering the direct question. Most of them are integrating with the some type of integration with the CRM at this point. So you're not losing any of that data. It's all being tracked and recorded and attached right along the account. And the best use case I've been seeing for them is gathering the information of how that customer wants to be engaged, right? Do they like to text? Do they like to email? Do they want the phone calls? Would they rather chat? I think those type of simple inquiries that we're trying to obtain as a collection agency can be achieved through a bot very effectively. Now, let me kind of move on to my bad things, right? If the thing is complex and you get maybe an older generation trying to interact with a bot who does not understand how to do that and has not been trained to do that, I would say the younger generations are being trained every day, whether it's via Apple or Google or Microsoft, in how to interact with different softwares and programs to make them run more effectively. I think the easiest way to see that is with a lot of the AI tools that we're seeing today. We're almost training ourselves how to get more out of the AI tool. Well, I think in later generations, that training wasn't there and built up their whole life. So they sometimes struggle with that chatbot, right? And I think there's also this piece of human empathy that I think, especially in those older generations that I'm mentioning, that they want. They want to tell their bad story of why they didn't pay the debt, right? They want you to hear how bad their situation was for the reason of not paying. So you lose some of that, right? That lack of human empathy for the type of generational person that's looking for it. I think it goes right along with that personal touch piece that I was kind of mentioning earlier, that maybe you won't get in kind of a move forward. Now let's talk about what we're really trying to do. And we're really trying to get a payment here, right? So let's cut through all that other stuff. And are we getting payments is the question, right? And I think there is a very strong use case for a chatbot for, let's say, under $1,000 balance, where people are more willing to just pay things they were willing to pay via online or pay via an IVR in the past. They're still willing to pay that right through a chatbot. I think when you get in the larger balances, which falls under that more complex heading, I got a $10,000 student loan and I want to negotiate with you. That's when things maybe go off the rails a little bit, but the bots are getting better at the negotiations, because that's one thing that we've been telling people like Skit, for example. Hey, we need to be able to really negotiate here. Like, we need to be able to gather information and make an intelligent determination on what the next offer is. And I'm sure we'll hear a little bit about that later on. But that would be my overall synopsis of the good and the bad that come with bots. How about you, John? What's your experience?
Chris, I lost track of what the original question was. It's a lot to digest.
What's the good and bad of chatbots?
I would say, does every agency need to have a chatbot? The short answer is right now is probably no. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, Chris. We're trying to collect bills. You don't need a chatbot to collect bills. If you have a chatbot that's one, efficient and profitable, then yes, then you do need it. I agree wholeheartedly that you need to have as many communication channels as possible to meet the desires of how debtors want to be communicated with. Great point on the balances. I think that there is a time and a place where the chatbot is not the right tool, and especially if the product you have or the setup you have is not efficient. If I'm reaching out to someone through a chatbot, an airline, I think is one of the examples I can think of, and I end up in an endless loop. I'm not getting anywhere. It's frustrating. If you use that as a collection scenario and it's costing you a potential collection, then you don't need it. It's not worth it. I think it also kind of depends on the client base that you're servicing or the segment of debt. If you have files that are eventually going to end up in a litigation pipeline, and they're higher balances, and someone wants to offer $25 a month to a chatbot, you're going to have a different result if that chatbot's not available and they're speaking to a human. The conversation is going to be much different. While we're willing to take your $25, you need to verify some additional information. Where do you work? What's your spouse's name? Where does your spouse work? That's information that's more difficult, even with the more sophisticated AI driven chatbots to obtain. I think we have this conversation in quite a few of Mike's webinars. The technology is only going to get better. I think we're probably just scratching the surface. So I guess my answer would be no, every agency does not need to have a chatbot, but if you're collecting data and you're going down that route, it's probably a good tool, if not now, in the near future.
Yeah. I think Dan, Chris, John, you all touched many topics. What I'll say, I'll give you some stats to the entire audience that today in US, 85% people are using smartphone, and among them, 97% people are actively texting. And studies, and in fact, I also believe that texting is one of the channels which has been left underutilized as compared to voice. There are many benefits of texting, which kind of, keeps the texting channel apart from all other channels like voice, which I believe Chris kind of touched in bits and pieces. I think one of the very good benefit which the texting channel brings in is that you can allow the consumer to digest information in bite-sized format, right? You don't need to put them on spot because it's a personal matter of a debt being owed. On a call, on a voice call with agents or with even a voice channel, it can be possible that the consumer is put on spot. Whereas on texting, they can consume the information in bite-sized, digestible format and reply back at their own convenience. They don't need to reply on the phone directly at that point, right? That's one of the very big benefit which the texting or chat channel is offering in general. And in fact, there are many complex use cases which are coming in, which I believe John touched very well, right? So there can be a complex use case like a loan extension or maybe a hardship scenario where collecting some data might not be very convenient on a voice channel. Even an agent might not understand the complete address at one instance or the complete name of a person. He might repeat, oh, can you repeat your address? But a texting channel can collect all these, complex fields in a very accurate manner. So especially scenarios like loan extension, hardship, giving details of co-pay, insurance pay, all of these things we are finding it very suitable for a text channel. And overall, if you see, the texting has a good TCO, a good ROI on total cost of ownership as compared to other channels. So overall, I believe texting is catching up a lot of traction. In fact, there was a recent study done by TransUnion. They offered some insights on overall agencies, how they are thinking about different channels. It kind of very interestingly pointed out that almost 60% of agencies in North America, they are considering texting, which is SMS and web chat on website, as a medium of communication, as a channel of communication next 2 years. So I believe, yeah, texting is definitely catching up pace.
So let's talk through that, because I think you made a lot of really good points there, and I think I want to hit on a couple. So we've seen chat software companies migrate their platforms from being this web-based clunky widget to being able to take in advantage of texting to have that chat happen now, right? Which I think is a completely different experience than the old widgets we would used to see in a chat, where we would be on a website, pull up this widget that's specially for the chat. We'd be chatting, and then we go do something else, and then we come back to the chat and they'd say, your agent has been disconnected, so you didn't respond within a certain amount of time. Now you lost that whole chat session that you just spent an hour working on this person with, right? And you guys know how bad it is, especially with like utility companies. Getting back to that same person is almost impossible, especially in a chat queue. That's frustrating. And how we're solving that now, though, is we're saying, let's just have the conversation, the chat bot conversation, over texting. And I believe that, and we've talked about this over the years, right? Apple is beginning to open up more of the doors for us to be able to even have those conversations using iMessage, which is even more interactive, and you get the little ... thing, right, where it feels more like you're actually chatting versus a standard SMS where you don't know what's happening on the other end of it. Do you see, is that where Skit is at, and is that where you guys want to head, is where that interaction is more through text than it is through, say, a widget or a website, so to speak?
Yeah, in fact, that is something which is getting enabled these days. I break down, Chris, what you pointed out. That's very interesting what you pointed out. It used to happen earlier that someone used to wait on the text box and wait for the reply to come in from a
Right.
human or the agent at the other end. That's
Right.
very much relatable. I think everyone has gone through that.
Right.
These days, what text bots, chat bots are doing is they can allow multiple scenarios to flow through, right? When the first text goes out, a consumer can have an option to directly go to an account portal and make a payment offline if they're comfortable to make a payment offline. They can also have a phone number on the text to contact the contact center if they want to prefer a voice channel, right? They can reply back to that same text and do a two-way communication, and the bot would handle the two-way communication, the chatbot, right? If a complex scenario comes in, which John rightly pointed out, that complex scenario is very smartly understood by these chatbots, and then a human is brought into the loop, right? So it's like all four different segments which are handled in very graceful manner, in which consumer does not feel left out, does not feel that, oh, no one replied me back.
Yeah, I think that it's fair to say, and I'm familiar with your product. It's great. That not all chatbots are equal, if that makes sense. There's varying degrees. I guess we don't need to dive too far into that, but I think it's important. Let's say we're all using the same product. The way in which it's used is important too. There are some different strategies. I think the way that we are trying to set up our chat is to drive consumers to other communication channels in a compliant way. If we don't have TCPA consent to text message, we can obtain it through the chat, and then funnel the conversation where we need to go, or as you mentioned, to a payment portal. While the AI component of chatbots is getting much better, I think at the end of the day, we want to focus on one specific channel and how do we drive people there. It's a funnel that we're trying to push people through, and I think that some chatbots, the functionality allows you to do that better than others.
Yeah. Well, I think that the big component here is the natural language proficiency of the chatbots is a huge separator between a good chatbot and a not good chatbot, right? And as we keep talking about how AI is going to change this, I mean, I think we're all thinking that the hope would be that these chatbots are able to get a lot smarter and more intelligent as we bring more AI into it, where it's less decision tree, less path oriented, meaning a lot of chatbots out there right now is just you're flowing through a picture a workflow chart, And that's all you're flowing through. And it knows when it hits that point, these are the things it can do or not do. And it's not intelligent enough in a lot of cases right now to say, wait a minute, this guy shouldn't even be at this point in the tree right now. We're in the wrong section, right? And that's where AI and some of this machine learning and natural language processing, all these things should come into play with these software companies like Skit to be able to say, wait a minute, he's talking to us about he wants to dispute it, and we have him in a payment tree. This is not the right place for him to be. We need to get him out and start talking about what his real issue is. And I think that goes back to your loop point, John, right? Where we sometimes get in these loop with these decision tree bots and we can't get to the right place where we need to land. And that's one of the most frustrating things that happens on an IVR too, right? When you're calling into let's stick with your airline example. Calling into an airline, you press the wrong button at the beginning, you're screwed, right? You're going to be on that phone for a half hour, wind up with some lady who's going to tell you called the wrong department and she won't transfer the call. So think about that in a bot in more of a virtual sense. I think it goes to your point, John, of not losing these customers to the frustration of that interaction. It needs to be seamless that they would get from a human almost.
Yeah, and I would take it a step further too. I think one of the limiting factors of driving people to chat is it doesn't have the downstream capabilities of a text or an email. If you're able to obtain consent, for text or email, I guess, or to be contacted through other, electronic means or an AI voice-driven option. If you look at percentages of collections on contact with a debtor or a consumer over the phone, you don't collect a bill every time that you talk to someone on the phone. You don't collect a bill every time you talk to someone on chat. But with phone and text, you can, if you gain consent, you can ping them again and again and again, and you can't do that on chat. So it is one limiting factor. It's something that we look at. If we can drive people to text, we may have an interaction where we're processing a dispute or we're receiving a promise. We then have the ability to follow up without human interaction, which is something chat can't do. So that's pretty important.
Right. And in fact, I have some interesting insights on both Chris and John, your point. Chris, the thing that you pointed out about NLPs and with the advent of Gen AI especially, right? These days, all these AI bots, voice bot, chatbot is the topic today, but chatbot, they are able to talk in such a human-like manner. They respond back in a dynamic fashion instead of replying back with a cookie cutter response, like you pointed out, instead of flowing through a flow chart and answering a particular response, right? In fact, we have seen that when we look at few of the conversations which actual consumers are doing on chatbot, some of them just come in and ask that, oh, can you order a pizza for me? How's the weather outside? And the chatbot is smart enough to bring them back to the payment flow, because John rightly pointed out, the end objective is to make the payment, right? So the response usually comes in from the chatbot is like, oh, I'm not an expert in weather forecasting, but I'm an expert in helping you to complete your payment. And it brings the flow back to the payment flow, right? So these days, chatbot with Gen AI advent has become so smart that they are able to handle conversations in a very human-like manner instead of appearing robotic. Right. That is a very good thing which has happened, especially with Gen AI coming in. And John, to your point on specifically that how chatbots are able to handle different scenarios, that's very rightly said. I mean, it's very important that how the information being handled, like whatever conversation is happening between consumer and the chatbot, that needs to transmit to all other channels. In fact, I'm also counting humans as a channel, right? So we don't want humans to repeat what chatbot has already interacted with the consumer. The context switching should be seamless. That is what gives consumer experience to the end user, as well as minute savings to agencies, to companies, and that is the hard ROI coming out. So
Yeah,
if you save minutes, those are FTE savings, those are hard dollar savings.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that repetition needs to be documented somehow. So setting up a chat funnel that opens a ticket in a ticketing software or somehow makes it into a system of record is very important as well. Integration, so that if there's a let's say someone does get stuck in that chat loop and then they call in and speak to a live agent, there's no lag time. You're able to reference the conversation That's an important piece of it too.
Do you think as we advance these chatbots and they become more sophisticated, it'll have require less human oversight than today? Because today, in a lot of the agencies I talk to, they're still dedicating collectors to the chat vehicle, meaning they're still overseeing the process as they continue down the path. Are you doing that, John or Diane, with your, or do you have a person who's overseeing your chats? And can you tell me about what they do day to day so that everybody else can get a sense of that?
We do. We have what we call digital agents. So they're handling not only chats, but emails, and other, text messages, other avenues.
So
Yeah.
they're still dependent, though. You're still dependent upon a human, though, behind these
Yes,
things, right? Because it wouldn't
absolutely.
go if you didn't have them in there making sure things are working the way they're supposed to be, I assume.
Right.
Yes. So we have a similar setup. We do have a tree that the goal is to resolve, how do I pay my bill online? That does not require a human response. So
Right.
we're the goal is to minimize human involvement. But yes, there are situations where it's necessary for a live agent to interact. And again, chat is not necessarily our preferred communication channel. So we're trying to obtain consent and drive people to either a portal where, again, if they need to view an itemization, for example, or to dispute a file, here's how you do that. That doesn't require human interaction.
Yeah.
Or drive them to a text or email channel where we can handle it more efficiently and compliantly.
So what I'm hearing you guys say, and I agree 100% with you. The worst part about the investment in the chatbots is what they're able to take care of is the edge cases or the admin cases, right? It's the events that don't generate money. So on the surface, you might look at it and say, wait a minute, this chatbot isn't going to generate me money because most things it's going to be helping me with are back office functions, disputes or bankruptcy, decease, whatever, you name it, right? It's really good at that stuff. It is really good. However, though, it is saving time and money because it's not a rep sitting there taking that call and going through those steps with the consumer. It's all automated now. And then a call that was going to cost you money that generates you $0 now is hopefully handled by a bot or by a web portal or by some other self-service model. Here is where we're trying to go. Now, I think there's also a lot of cases to be made for these tasks. So let's say they needed to update a phone number, an address, or whatever it might be that they need to tell you, and that kind of information dump drop besides paying the bill. The chatbot is a great use case for that, right? If that's how they want to interact with you. But so would email or so would text, I would guess would be the argument that could be made. But you're moving that away from an actual collector who's supposed to be making you money and giving it to this robot who's not, right? What other tasks have you guys done to get, like, is there something cool that anybody's done to help with some of the back office stuff besides just trying to take a payment?
Yeah, sorry, Chris and everyone. I just got dropped off, but I think I got the discussion.
Okay.
Any interesting use cases, right, Chris? So yes,
Yeah.
there are interesting use cases which have been done on chatbot, on SMS bot. In fact, you are right. I mean, email bot also work in the same manner, except it's on a email app or laptop instead of texting. But the concept wise, it's same, right? Some of the interesting use cases that we have done is we in fact recently made an insurance portal, right? So a chatbot is able to collect insurance details. Anyone can come in and update the insurance details as well. How it does is it basically allows the consumer to log in into an insurance portal and input all details over there, right? There's an account portal, a payment portal, I think, which is very much kind of common across all agencies. Account portal enables anyone to pay on the portal itself. So all these chatbots, SMS bots, they are enabling, like you said, Chris, very rightly, they are able to collect all critical and case sensitive data in a very accurate manner. So that those all use cases in which we need to collect a lot of data, to make to maybe take a decision like loan extension, which I pointed out earlier. We collect a lot of questions, answers to a lot of questions, and then the agency or the creditor can decide if the loan extension needs to be given. So all those different complex use cases are now getting enabled by chatbot. In fact, there's also a good, interesting case in which voice bot and text bot, the chatbots work in conjunction with each other. It's the omni-channel way of working, right? A voice bot basically talks through whenever a complex use case like a hardship or let's say asking details about the breakdown of multiple debts owned by a health debtor, right, comes in. The voice bot is able to say, okay, I can send you a breakdown of all these debts that you have pending along with the co-pay, insurance pay over your text. And the text message comes in with the complete breakdown, and the consumer can take up the payment on the text itself if they are comfortable to pay, or they can ask to receive a call back after consuming that information. So these are different use cases getting possible, especially with the chatbot coming in.
Yeah, so almost document exchange, right? I mean, that's really where we're headed on. Like, hey, can I see the letter you sent me, or can I see my initial demand letter, or can I get a copy of my invoice or bill? We should be able to get to the point where we're able to push that right back to them via the chatbot, right? Okay, yep, here's your bill or your invoice, and drop it right into them.
That's right, Chris. In fact, you remind me of another interesting use case for a particular customer who are dealing with toll debt. They kind of asked us that if someone kind of disputes or says that, oh, I don't owe this debt, or can you give me more information about this debt? It's a tolling debt, right? They are able to provide an evidence, a photographic evidence. So that photographic evidence can be given over the chat channel, the web chat or SMS channel. So, and everything can be given to consumer to convince them that this is a debt that they owe. So even that's an interesting use case coming up.
Even if you are talking to them, right, you could say, hey, is it okay if I have a conversation with you via chat, and send them the documents that way to keep that interest and maybe get some of the consent stuff that you're talking about there, John. I think that's a pretty good use case.
Yeah, and I think we're doing something similar, but again, there is not a significant amount of case law on chat communications. To my knowledge, I think there's one case in the Northern District of California where essentially they came out and said that messages from chat do not come within the artificial voice or pre-recorded messages under the TCPA. But as far as sharing itemizations through chat, it can be done much more efficiently and compliantly. I think what we're doing, again, falls into we're steering the conversation from chat somewhere else, unless it's a canned response. So a link, here's a link to our portal, which requires you to enter, some of your personal information to access. But as you log in, you're giving us consent to communicate with you via text and email going forward. And then they can access their itemizations. There's a link to dispute there. They can make payments.
Back to the payment port. Basically, your portal is handling all of that, and you're redirecting from your chat to your portal, which sounds like a really good idea. And I think you're hitting on something important here. How are you doing the verification with chat right now? Like, how do you know that it's the other person on the end? Is it the same that you would expect on a voice call, or is it a little bit different than that?
Yeah, so we're treating it the same as a call. We're giving the mini Miranda, any other state specific disclosures that are required, and then asking for verification. And again, if it's canned responses prior to an agent getting involved, we're trying to drive them somewhere else so that this doesn't have to be done through chat. If we can identify what their need is and drive them somewhere that handles that verification, it's advantageous to us.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Because so I guess what I'm hearing is nobody knows let's say the CFPB, for example, nobody knows what the CFPB envisions when it comes to a chat interaction and where they're actually putting this in the law, is why we got to stay a little bit skeptical. But at the same time, I think it's blurry still on text messaging, to be honest with you, which falls into that same kind of bucket.
I'm not an attorney by trade, but the FCC has issued some comments, and they've made it
Right.
pretty clear that a text message is a call under the TCPA. So they're read into that how you will. I've had this conversation with compliance attorneys, and while the chat scenario has not been presented to them, if it was, it's my opinion that they would come back and say the same scenario applies as a text. So I think again, text messaging, email is maybe a little bit less, but the chat, some voice, AI driven voice and texting, there's going to be a significant amount of litigation and case law in the coming years, which is going to hopefully, well, you wish litigation upon no one. It will give us some answers and some clarity. I think while we're all for innovation and new products and making it easier for consumers to pay our bills and for us to make money, we're less excited about being at the forefront and being the guinea pigs. Chris, if you want to take the litigation hits, and we can chat after.
Or maybe just pay the bills at least.
Yeah. I've been known to test the waters with tech, and when it comes to this kind of stuff, and usually it never works out in my favor. They never think the way we're going to.
Somebody's got to do it.
Right. So would you say then right now that you don't share any financial information in there? You won't give any data out about the account? Are you staying that conservative? And how about you, Diane? Are you that conservative with your chat and what you will share and not?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with John. We try to push them to other avenues. We are pretty limited. We either send them to our payment portal, or we have a self-serve portal where they can dispute, ask questions, update preferences, and things like that.
Yeah.
It's easy to give a link where they can verify who they are and access everything they need. And I think, at the end of the day, to the initial question about whether an agency needs a chat portal, and my answer was probably need is a strong word.
Yeah.
The percentage of people that are going to pay their debts and want to pay their debts are going to find a way to get a hold of you and pay it, regardless of whether they have to call and deal with an agent. I think the chat is a useful tool for steering people in the right direction, but I don't think it's currently for us anyways, a full-blown let's negotiate debt. There's just more efficient and compliant ways to do it, I think. So
yeah, that's true. I think, we need to be very careful about the privacy and data security on chat specifically, right? I mean, like the chatbots that Skid deploy, we never collect card details on text. The consumers are always directed towards account portal when they agree to pay. So the chatbot basically does the part of, giving them all details about the debt, maybe giving them the payment arrangement plans. They want to go with a 6-month installment plan. Once they select the 6-month installment plan, then they are directed towards the account portal. So all of that card details need to pass through a PCI DSS, a secure channel. We need to be careful about the data at rest as well as data in transit. So hence, I think what John pointed out, it's very important to consume data in a secure manner over text channel.
So on your will Diane and John, will you guys take a payment via your chat right now? Like right in the chat? It sounded like no was the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. And so actually a question just came through for that. That's awesome. What good timing, almost like I set it up. So the payments are all links, I would assume, that they're clicking, right? Or being redirected back to your payment portal to make that payment. It's almost like you're doing the same thing, whether they want to pay or pretty much do anything with you, you're redirecting them to your portal. Am I understanding you guys right?
So there's
We've seen a lot of success with allowing the consumers to make resolution offers on the chatbot, and then give us the preference of how they want to be contacted back. We do see a lot of consumers making offers on there, but not more.
So they'll be like, hey, I'll give you half or whatever, and then that eventually makes its way to those dedicated collectors that you have, right? And then they would go look into it to see if that's something you could or could not do. How do you follow back up with them from that offer? Are you calling them anyhow at that point?
They tell us how they want to be contacted. And
Oh,
then
okay.
we have some alerts that will go straight to the collector saying, hey, we just got an offer. So it's pretty quick follow-up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's an exception over here that in case for a creditor, right, if the cards are present on file, right, so a saved card can be accessed and used over SMS because we are not communicating the card details over the text channel for a card on file because we're not consuming anything, right? So the last 4 digits of the card can be given, an agreement can be taken from the consumer to make the transaction happen. So that all of that can happen over text channel, avoiding the account portal. But whenever a new card needs to be collected, then yes, account portal needs to be utilized because we avoid collecting new cards over the text channel.
So are you integrating that? So let's say they negotiate a payment arrangement with you over that chat. Now, the idea would be is that if they get sent to a web portal or something, that information is readily displayed to them, right? That they're
Right,
just clicking and entering the information.
right.
Yeah. That's achievable today with, for example,
Oh,
your
yes.
product?
Yes, and that is something which should be 100% implemented, because we don't want consumers to do the same thing which they did on the chatbot. I mean, if they agreed to a 6-month, 12-month, whichever payment arrangement, the account portal needs to reflect that, right? So that is then using some smart links. So we call it smart links. You can give a smart link to a consumer, and with the smart link, when they click the smart link, they get to account portal, which has those configurations preset. And that remains valid for a period of time. You can define the period of time. It can be 30 minutes, an hour or so. So whenever they go in, they have the 6-month payment arrangement already fed in. They just feed in the card details and the transaction can be done. So you save time getting spent by consumers as well as time getting spent by agents at each and every place, because we want to, like I said, maximize customer experience as well as maximize ROI from the product coming in.
So so really it's tough. I know one thing that we want to talk about today was like collection success rate. That's a tough measure when it comes to these bots and the way we're all using them, right? To say that, hey, this is generating me 10% more money per month. It's really, we're all using these in different ways to achieve different circumstances. And I think the better measure of this, rather than maybe a collection success rate, it would be how many people are interacting with the bot, and of those interactions, how much time did you truly save by not having a human interacting with you in those cases? It almost sounds similar to how we needed to evaluate UiPath. If you guys are familiar with those bots over there, right? The bots that will do different jobs and tasks, right? It's not how much more money is this bot going to generate me. It's how much time is this going to save my humans from having to do it. And that's how I think that's how I view chatbots today. It's any self-service time that we're saving from the collector is what we're achieving through them. It's not necessarily a replacement for, and it's also not a substitute for a collector at this point in time. Not to say we won't get there someday. And John and Diane, do you feel different? Have you cut staff because you had a chatbot? I figured your answer would be no, Diane. How about you, John?
Yeah, no, we've not cut staff. Probably the opposite. Again, again, I don't think that the chat is a great functionality. It's a piece. It's one tool in a toolbox. I think. I don't think it's going to make or break anyone's collections goals in a time period. But I think, just like every other company out there that has chat in different verticals, there's a piece of this. Let's just say when you're submitting an RFP, what are the communication channels available to my consumers to communicate with you? And if these, let's say it's a hospital or health system asking the question and they're getting 10 submissions, and you say phone and mail, right. You're probably going to look slightly less attractive than the other people who are saying phone, mail, text, email, chat, and maybe walk-ins. I don't know if anybody still does walk-ins, but yep. It's part of a package. It's an additional tool that's great to present. I think the products and the functionality will continue to improve. I think for the amount of time, if we're just looking at, you know, the efficiency of it, for the amount of time that it takes someone to go to our website and you know, begin communicating via chat, they probably can achieve their end goal a lot easier without having to engage us at all. But it's an option, right? So hopefully that answers your question.
It does. It does.
Yeah. And Diane, you want to go if you want to add something, Diane?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so Chris and John, yeah, I think you pointed out the right points over there. I think working with, you know, when we have been discussing with agencies and creditors, companies, what we have realized is that they are looking at value on three perspectives, right? The first one, Chris, you pointed out is FTE minutes savings, right? Which kind of results into FTE gains. We don't want to reduce the work staff. We want those FTEs to be repurposed to increase the top line further, to increase the collections further. So the FTE gains, FTE savings is the first lever. Second, we have seen they also look at off-hours collections, how off-hours collections are being enabled with these chatbots and different AI agents. And third is basically commission savings that they're able to save because of end-to-end collections with these chatbots enabled. So these three are the levers on which usually we have seen agencies, creators that we have been interacting to, valuing these chatbots and calculating ROI on. In fact, we also calculate our ROI in hard numbers, even before implementing a project, implementing a chatbot or any other AI bot on these three levers. So we kind of forecast what would the savings be, how many FTE gains you would have, who can be repurposed to other business lines, to other service lines to increase collections further. So
That's
yes.
how you're saying you do your return on investment, is by peeling back those three layers and being able to show it to the companies. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you find agencies are coming to you with the mindset that they think this is going to increase their recovery rates, and you kind of got to walk them back from that a little bit? Because I think that is one of the, I guess, nostalgic things out there that's like, you know, if I throw more vehicles for people to pay me, that's going to result in more payments. And I totally disagree with that in probably all cases.
Yeah. So Chris, that's the interesting point. In fact, I'll kind of detail on a particular work that we did for one of our customer, right? So they were kind of sending a lot of SMSs on a monthly basis. They had limit on FTE counts who can answer those inbound replies coming into outbound SMSs getting sent, right? So they wanted to implement the SMS bot and kind of cover those repeatable queries, someone giving a RPC, someone asking other details like, oh, can you give me a 6-month plan, 12-month plan? So all of those things they wanted to cover with the SMS bot. And then they wanted to see how many additional SMSs that they can send outbound on a monthly basis with the same FTE count that they have with the SMS bot into the system now. So that's how, yeah. So that's how they are with the same number of FTEs. That's how they are enabling additional collections by allowing the SMS bot to do what it can do, right? We don't want all the consumers to pass through SMS bot when they are getting into a difficult situation, right? Which John rightly pointed out. Whenever they are getting into a hardship scenario, we want agents to jump in. And that's what these AI agents enable, a graceful transfer to agents, right? But whatever are like repeatable mundane queries, we want the chatbot to be able to handle that so that we can save FTE minutes and those minutes can be utilized into collecting.
That makes sense. That makes total sense. So the complicated issues are the real hardship ones. How do you, can you bring somebody on the line and have them available right away in your tool? Because that's one thing that's always been a struggle of most people just want to reply with a phone number. That replying with that phone number means it's never going to get dialed, in my opinion, right? So
Right.
the way to streamline that, where, you know, you're ringing their phone because they want their phone ring that second, is the only way to keep that conversation really moving at that point, right?
Yeah, you're right, Chris. So there are
Yeah.
options available, like you can have a human agent come on the chat channel itself. It can be taken over by a human agent, right? Or you can also have a phone number provided to the consumer who can dial into that phone number, or an outbound call can go to the consumer at that point itself if they so choose to, right?
Yep.
And a human agent can talk over the voice channel. So there are different mechanisms to transition from the AI agent to an actual human agent.
Very nice. Well, Mike, I don't know where we were at in this discussion topic. We kind of just went on our own here. John or Diane, was there anything in these questions that we have here that we got that we needed to hit on or that you guys wanted to hit on?
I think there was a question, I can see a question from Aaron
Yeah.
about if the chatbot or the AI agents can pass on details back to CRM along with the smart link. So Aaron, yes, all the AI agents, including the chatbot, are able to integrate with the CRM system. They can integrate with APIs. They can integrate, in fact, without APIs as well. And without API, when I say without API, we have kind of started a robotic process automation mechanism, which basically allows the voice bot or the AI agents like chatbot to kind of log into CRM just as human agents do, read from the fields and update the fields after the conversation has finished. And this we have done with few legacy CRM systems of 1960s, 1970s who did not have APIs available. So all in all, the CRM can be updated with or without APIs, and everything that has been discussed on the chatbot can be sent back to the CRM, including the smart link and other dispositions.
Wow, that's pretty good. So what you basically told everybody there is doesn't matter what CRM they have, you'll figure it out. That is awesome.
Oh, yes.
Even if it makes you build in a bot to do it, right? That's
We,
great.
we did
Yeah.
that thing. This. We built a bot, an RPA, robotic process automation bot, which logs into the CRM, reads and updates the CRM back just like a human agent. So yes,
Yeah.
we can integrate it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think there's another question out there about how we're aligning the data for the use of chatbots. I don't know if I fully understand the question, but I'll try to hit on it with tables, etc. I would say this would be the same for my chatbots or my website or anything I'm gathering information from people. I never overwrite directly the information, meaning if somebody goes in and updates their address, I don't just accept that that's their address. It goes through a review process with a rep because we were very early on in my career when we were just doing stuff like that. We get people typing in 123 Elm Street or 123 Sesame Street, right? And then we would be updating the account and then trying to send a letter to 123 Sesame Street, and you know how that would go, right? So we put everything into a pending. So we bring the address in, we'll bring the phone numbers in, we'll bring the name changes in, we'll bring it all in, and then basically it'll sit in this maybe too technical, but staging, a staging table basically before it's actually committed to the database as true, or keep as additional records if it's something different. One thing that we've been doing though, to get the best email address, and a lot of people do this, is when you're starting to interact with somebody, a way to do verification and gather the consent and know that it's a good email address is simply by saying, hey, just so we have, can verify who you are, we're going to send you a code to your email address. Well, they're giving us an email address, and we know that they have connectivity to that email address and can access the email because they're also inputting a dual factor code into the site that they just got from that email, if you're following me through that. So you can accomplish multiple different pieces in one clean slice. And today, people are more willing to do that, right? Because we're all having to do that. Dual authentication now is pretty much a standard on any site that they would be interacting with. So it's not something foreign that they're not used to. And by doing that, a lot of the best data we're getting is that email addresses. Like a lot of the email addresses people put on applications are typically like their Gmails or Hotmails that they never even check, right? Because it's just a bunch of spam in there and they just throw that on the application because they think they're going to get marketing material. But then when you get that good one, when they're actually interacting with you, it's actually way better, and you'll see a lot more success from your emails, obviously, with that verified email address versus that one that maybe the client is sending over to you that is really garbage.
Yeah, I'm off topic, but this is a conversation we have quite a bit. There are no garbage emails. An email does not have to collect a bill. It serves a function. If it saves you the 54 cents of a mailed email validation times 30,000 a week or whatever,
right?
It's achieved its goal. The model validation, notice what percentage of debt is collected off of that notice is nothing. So an email from a client, while it may not collect your bill, it checks a box and allows you to compliantly collect using other methods after that.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I mean, I've been emailing now, active accounts for probably 8 years, right? And we have over those 8 years, as much as operations wanted to prove that there's going to be some lift by dropping these emails into somebody's inbox, I've been able to time and time again prove that it's not, right? And I like your point. It's checking the box is what it's doing. It's showing that we did our due diligence and we reached out and we tried. But yeah, if somebody has that industry stat, I'd love to know it. How much money is collected from validation notice emails? That would be a stat, because I don't know how we'd eventually get to that data, but I would be willing to bet that there's more disputed via that letter or mail than there are paid via that letter or mail. So just a guess, but I know we're running up on time, Mike, so.
That's fine. We'll go around and we'll ask for final thoughts. So for everybody who's watching or listening, what do you consider to be sort of either the most important takeaway, or I'll give you the choice. What's the first thing people should do after listening to this conversation for an hour? They're going to end this webinar. They're going to go back to their, back to the work. What should be at the top of their to-do list as soon as this webinar is over? Vaibhav, we'll start with you.
Yeah. I think text channels, especially SMS and web chat, they are catching up a lot, especially with the changing preferences of people, especially the millennials. In fact, an interesting study also pointed out that the old generation baby boomers are also catching up with the text channel. So I think text channel will definitely catch up. What everyone needs to do is they need to go and figure out if that makes sense for their business. And if it makes sense, it can operate in isolation, or it can also operate in omni-channel mechanism with different channels such as a voice bot. And definitely it should work in conjunction with the human agents.
Excellent. Thank you. Diane?
I would say see how you can leverage these chatbots, even if it's for simple scenarios. You can always start somewhere.
Sounds good. Thanks. Chris?
I think chatbots do a great job of accompanying things, like as an add-on. So if you currently have a web portal or something like that, I would tell you to venture down and looking at a chatbot. And maybe it's not something super complex to start, but at least to give somebody the feature. Like if you have them landing in your payment portal and they're struggling on that payment portal, that's a guy who wants to pay his bill, or a woman who wants to pay their bill, right? And so you want to take advantage of that. And sometimes you see them a lot on sites now where they'll pop up in the bottom right-hand corner after a certain amount of time of you looking on the same site that says, how can I help you? Like if they're even those simple bots where you do frequently asked questions or canned responses is better than nothing. But really where you want to go is, in my opinion, is the point where it can help automate some of those calls that you really don't want your agents handling. I would say start there. If you can get a bot handling your disputes and your bankruptcies, your deceased, your special handling accounts, your anything that's not gonna generate you money, it will be worth the return on investment will be there for sure.
Excellent. Thanks. John?
Yeah, I would keep it simple. I would just say that give yourself as many opportunities to collect every bill. And like I said before, chat is a tool in your toolbox. Have the right tools for the job. So if you don't have chat, it's probably a good idea to add it. Is it going to, dramatically change your ROI overnight? Probably not. But it is an efficient tool if set up properly. Do your due diligence. I think part of this webinar was intended to be about scalability. Make sure that you're just like any other vendor, that it's going to fit the needs of your agency currently. And imagine yourself with 100 more employees. This is the same product, have the ability to get you there. And if it doesn't, it's probably not the right product.
Excellent. Well, John, Diane, Vaibhav, Chris, I want to thank each of you so much for being here. On behalf of everybody who's watching and listening and walking away with a much better understanding of how to approach sort of chatbots and AI and text messaging and how it fits into their overall communication and collection strategies. Thanks to each of you for being here. I want to thank Skit.ai again for sponsoring today's webinar. Please check them out at Skit.ai. To those of you watching and listening, thanks for making us part of your day. I really appreciate that. If you're watching us live, we're back tomorrow with a webinar at 1 o'clock on the tools that should be in every collector's toolbox. If you haven't signed up for that yet, there's a link in the chat, or you can go to the events calendar on accountrecovery.net and sign up. So we look forward to seeing you back for that at 1 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Thanks so much for being here, and we look forward to seeing everybody soon.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks,
you.
everyone.